Male privilege, a story of oppression. If you live in most of the world's modern Western countries, you've probably been exposed to the idea that some people have something called privilege. This is an idea that states that certain people have a better life or a better opportunity at a better life simply because they are born a certain way. There are many types of privilege. There's male privilege, which states that being a man, gives you advantage over being a woman. White privilege, straight privilege, and really anything you can imagine. Think of something that makes one group of people different from everyone else, and you can make up a privilege out of that. As with most social justice definitions of terms that already exist, this one is problematic. Essentially, what most social justice types tend to do is take a term that already means a thing and then tweak it just so that you can make it mean what you want. Privilege is no exception. Privilege is defined by the New Oxford American Dictionary as a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group of people. This definition of privilege doesn't match with the social justice definition. Privilege, when used correctly, implies that this right or advantage applies to a certain group, and to that certain group only. In other words, no other group or person could possibly ever have the same rights or advantages as the privileged group. Now, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, talked about privileges is the so-called male privilege. This so-called privilege stems from the fact that we all live in a patriarchy, or a male hegemony. Now, hegemony and patriarchy are two other words that are often misdefined by the social justice types, but this isn't a video on etymology or linguistics, so I'm not going to get into the many reasons why these social justice definitions are incorrect. The very concept of male privilege implies that there is a group that is deprived. And since this is male privilege, the implication is that women are the ones being deprived. Now, of what are women being deprived? Happiness? Basic human rights? Life? Justice? The answer is yes. Yes to all. All of the above. According to the social justice types, of which feminists are the most repulsive and infamous, male privilege is denying women everything, to the point of oppressing them. That's right. Women are so deprived under the iron fist of male hegemony that they are downright oppressed. Now, again, if you live in most of the world's modern Western countries, you're probably asking yourself where this oppression is taking place because you've never seen it. Because oppression is serious business. Oppression is prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. I mean, we're talking slavery and similar situations. Where on earth is this happening in our society? The answer is simple. It's not. It's not happening anywhere in our society. At least it isn't happening broadly speaking. It's not the way our society as a whole functions. It isn't the law of the land. It isn't sanctioned by the government. It doesn't exist except in particular instances, usually in a person-to-person dynamic. Now, if such a thing as male privilege existed, it would stand to reason that men would have the advantages in all categories. Simply speaking, men would quite literally rule the country in every way imaginable, from business and economics to politics and the media. A quick glance at our society tells us that this is simply not so. Let's take a look at some male privileges that are often invoked by the social justice types. First of all, let's point out the irony of feminism itself. The fact that feminism is most established and evolved in Western capitalist democracies shows that women are not oppressed in those societies. The places where theoretically feminism would be needed are the places where women do not have the right or privilege to become feminists. An idea that is clearly clearly baffles the social justice movement, if it is even capable of considering it. Invocation number one. Men are paid more than women for the same job regardless if they are more qualified or not, than a woman. So, we've all heard this one. It's the most prevalent lie out there. Even President Barack Obama invoked it in his most recent State of the Union address. The basic premise of this lie is that women get paid 77 cents for every dollar paid to a male. The important parts of this are that in this scenario, the woman and the man are in the same exact job, and there is the keyword pay. Now, several economists have already debunked this myth numerous times, but for the sake of it, let's address the issues here. First of all, there is a report that states that men will earn more than women, and the figures are roughly about 77 cents per dollar. But that's just it. Men will earn over the course of their entire careers that much more than women, on average. Not in one particular job or a particular career path or anything like that. Over the course of an entire working lifetime. Meaning to say that this report is taking every man on average and every woman on average. However, men are more likely to work overtime. Men are more likely to retire later in life. Men do not take time off in the middle of their careers for children. Women, on the other hand, are more likely to work part-time. Women retire at an earlier age. Women do take time off in the middle of their careers to give birth to children, and many do not return to work. The ones that do are more likely to work part-time. When all of those factors are taken into consideration, there is no pay gap. Period. In fact, a recent study is showing the exact opposite. Women age 30 and under are actually getting paid more for the same job as men. So quite literally the opposite of what the feminists are saying is actually taking place. The reason for this is simple. First, because everyone is being told this lie, people tend to overcompensate and are probably trying to get women more money in order to balance these imaginary scales. Second, and much more devious, there are actually places that are being forced into putting more women in places of power and authority within privately owned companies, regardless of their competency or qualifications, or face government sanctions. Invocation number 2. Women are considered lessers than their male counterparts in education. This is a big one as well. Apparently, if we do not do something, no woman is ever going to get educated. Well, a recent Labor Department study showed that the group that benefits the most from affirmative action is white women, more than black men. Interesting. Additionally, the figures are showing that more women are enrolled in college and university than men. More women apply and are accepted. More women graduate. More women earn degrees, from the lowly associates to the mighty doctorate. More women are getting them than men. More men are dropping out of school at all levels than women. Well, it seems that the ones having the privilege here are the women. Maybe this is why women are getting paid more than men now. Invocation number 3. Men regularly physically, sexually, and mentally abuse women. Women are victims and men are perpetrators of domestic violence. Well, the numbers for this are actually quite interesting. Men are actually physically abused by women roughly the same as women are abused by men. However, they are far more likely to be arrested even if the woman was the initiator or even the sole perpetrator of the abuse. Women are more likely to avoid charges, be acquitted if charged, and receive shorter sentences if convicted at all for the same crimes committed by men. Mothers are more likely to abuse their children than fathers. Despite all of this, in the United Kingdom, there are 125 male shelters for every male shelter. In Canada, there are none. And in the United States, several shelters for victims of sexual abuse refuse to accept men, but will accept dogs. Now, I'm not keeping the score here, but it seems pretty evident that there is no such thing as male privilege. Men do not have the privilege of being paid more money. They are underrepresented in higher education. they are punished more severely, and less people care about physical, mental, and sexual abuse of men than of women. In fact, not only do these things represent the evidence that there is no male privilege, they actually point to the fact that there is a distinct female privilege in our society. I haven't even covered parental rights or even things such as the fact that breast cancer gets much more attention and much more funding than prostate or testicular cancer. Yet the lies and misinformation are prevalent. In schools and in the media, everyone wants to come to the aid of the poor victimized woman. On the one hand, the feminist cries, "Down with the damsel in distress," while at the same time crying out that she is oppressed and that someone needs to save her from the evil patriarchy. It's hypocrisy incarnate. The entire notion of the patriarchy, the male hegemony, and its inherent male privileges is an obvious lie. Even if we didn't dig deep, look at studies, or do any research, just by observing the real world, we can see that this is not a thing. If you cover your ears and shut out the hate-filled propaganda of the social justice types and actually just observe the real world, you'll notice that what they are telling you is nothing more than a fabricated reality. They live in their own universe, where the facts do not match up with their beliefs. Yet it is their voices being heard the loudest. It is their propaganda that is infesting our country at the highest levels of government and education. This is no conspiracy to keep the men down. It isn't that devious. It's simply a social movement gone awry. The best defense against this is education. We've a long way to go if we are to reverse the effects that have already taken root.